represented by a pig dog, the silver dog with the golden tail. And so the silver were all the states that believed in the populist policy. They were hoping the states would vote for the populist candidate and therefore get those electoral votes. Your golden states. Hey, let's review. State. Electors. Montana has 4. How did they come up with the number of electors each state has? Members of Congress. House and the Senate added up together, that's electoral college. This is basic knowledge, basic things that everybody should know, and if you don't, I wouldn't tell other people you didn't know that. This is stuff you should know. But secondly, House and the Senate. Which one's decided by population? The Houses. How many senators per state? 2. And the problem with this map is, it looks like there's a lot of silver, doesn't it? That's all of the whole country. The problem is, how many people live here? Just like today. So it's a little misleading, but look at everyone's behind us. Well, let's get to what happened. The Republicans nominated William McKinley. McKinley was governor of Ohio. He was in Congress when they did the McKinley tariff that promised, we're going to cut the tariff. And they ended up raising the tariff. And he was chosen by the state of Ohio, who ran the Republican Party by the 1890s. He was laissez-faire, more of the same. Now, they said laissez-faire, but more and more they're saying conservative. And what did the conservative mean? Pro-business policies, regressive taxation, but it was represented by the gold standard. Why gold? Well, most people didn't understand the gold standard, but they understood this idea that seemed logical. Money should be backed by something solid. Metal, steel, okay, gold. Now, of course, that's silly. Gold is only valuable because we say it is, because we imagine gold is valuable. Gold isn't valuable because it's gold. Gold is valuable because we just decided, hey, we'll make gold valuable. That's no real intrinsic value, except we decided it's just like anything else. So gold is not valuable because it's solid. Gold is valuable because we said so. So couldn't dollars just be valuable? The whole idea loses its logic, and it's also not very stable, but it seems stable to people who don't think. It sounds smart to people who don't really understand what's going on. And they took advantage of that. Should add, that could be McKinley himself. So we're right at the edge where candidates started campaigning for himself. He would give a couple speeches, but he was not known as a great speaker at a time where oration was the main way you contributed. In fact, he was known for having a 3-by-5 card. He would have it, he just kind of shuffle through what he's going to say and kind of talk like this. And then he was known as just being exceedingly dull. Well, why was he chosen? Because Marcus Hanna wanted him. He was the boss of the Ohio machine. And he wanted McKinley. And he didn't want McKinley because McKinley was the perfect man for the job and would follow the best policies. Be a fine president. No, it's because he controlled McKinley. McKinley was a solely owned entity of Marcus Hanna. In fact, most people believe that McKinley was a little more of a puppet. There's going to be a lot of cartoons of him as a puppet and Hanna as a puppeteer. But he was considered kind of a dullard. Dim-witted, not too bright, not the sharpest tack. I can keep going on. McKinley was considered to be somebody who had control. Or as Hanna would say, all I need is someone to hold the pen. He can sign the laws. That's all I need. So it was known but whispered about McKinley. So Hanna could be behind the scene, holding the strings, profiting from this. So here's Hanna, one of the more famous cartoons, and look how they draw McKinley. You look at the facial expressions, I think that tells you everything you need. And that's Henry Clay. Remember him, the great compromiser? He was considered like the moral background of the moral tradition of the Republican Party. So it says, that man Clay, he's saying it, he was an ass. It's better to be president than to be right. And you notice the $, the diamond brooch. So It's better to get the power than to be moral. All we care about is power. And McKinley was the man. The Democrats, as usual, were in disarray. Of course, the Republicans kind of were too. And Cleveland wanted a third term, but the problem was they were bigly divided because of the panic over the gold standard. Because the gold standard, by definition, was deflationary and volatile, but they didn't want to talk volatile, so they just didn't get it. And Cleveland came out kind of wishy-washy about the gold standard. And so, no, he did not get the 2/3 vote necessary to win the nomination. It's not like it's done today. We'll get this a little bit later, but they run in primaries. The people, the different parties, their electorate have a little bit more control. Well, that's sort of bad, but that's where we're at now. So Cleveland did not get the nomination. And remember, he was wishy-washy about railroad regulation and wishy-washy about monopolies, and so no one believed him. Because he was a conservative Democrat. Conservative as in laissez-faire. Well, I should add, I put it up here, he did get married while in office. And this was a big deal. I've been the president, get married while president. And they had a child. I should add, she was what, 28 years younger than him? So, but they had a kid, and that was big news. And so everyone talked about this kid. And a very well-known confectionery made one of their a product named after her. You know what a confectionery is? Candy. Made candy. And what name? Baby Ruth. Yes, Baby Ruth candy bars using the new production techniques were named after her. Baby Ruth. They still sell them today. So, no, but it has nothing to do with the baseball player. And they couldn't pick a nominee. So we have a hung convention. They met in Omaha because of their fear of populism. They thought they'd get a little bit of the populist thunder. And a congressman from Nebraska who moved there, he had been a lawyer in Chicago, only 36 years old, got up to give a speech. His name was William Jennings Bryan. Now, Bryan was known as a great orator already, but 36, that's only 1 year over the constitutional requirement to be a president, which is 35. And he knew there's not much chance to be president, but he wouldn't have minded. And don't forget, Garfield gave the nominating address for Grant in 1880. Didn't want to be president at all, but that speech got him the nomination. So he gave a great speech, considered one of the greatest speeches in American history. And I have to read you the speech, one part of the speech. Now, don't forget, this is at a time where people wanted to hear long speeches. He had a great voice for a speech without amplification. It was deep enough so he could kind of be manly, but at the same time, has to be a little bit higher than a deep baritone because it goes over a big auditorium, this temporary auditorium that held about almost 10,000 people in Omaha, and immediately they tore it down. So here's the speech. Get comfortable. It's going to take a few hours. I'm going to read you just a few sentences. It's fantastic. And the thing about it is, great orator can do this. Once he started speaking, I think about 10,000 people were talking. You know, they're half listening. They knew it'd be good, so the theater or the auditorium was full. Once he started speaking, he literally reached out and grabbed the audience, just held them. And for the whole hour speech, they were on the edge of their seats. And he could bring them up and cheer, then bring it back down and up again. The whole speech was just masterful. Had them. And so just imagine we're at the end, and they know it's the climax. So they're into it. And he knows it too. So he finishes like this. If they dare come out in the open field and defend the gold standard, as a good thing, we will fight them to the uttermost, having behind us the producing masses of this nation and the world, supported by the commercial interests, the laboring interests, and the toilers everywhere. We will answer the demand for a gold standard by saying to them, and he stopped for a second. And I guess the whole place is going, You shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold. Silence. The whole place just went. And then 10 seconds later, it just erupted in cheers. And you can imagine what they were thinking. What that means. But it sounded great. It kind of has a biblical connection. It kind of a connection to the gold standard. We don't know what it meant, but yes, they didn't have a camera set up, so only have drawings of it. But they stormed the stage, picked him up on his shoulders, carried him around, and by acclamation, made him the nominee for president of the United States. It's maybe the greatest political speech ever. The youngest man, the youngest person to be ever nominated president of the United States. And he would dominate Democratic politics for 20 years. Never become president, run 3 times. But it was his attitude and also some of his problems would personify the Democratic Party. Big deal. And so when I was a little kid, my Uncle Hap took me to his grave, which is in Weeping Water, Nebraska, where my dad on his dad's side had their farm that they lost, but it was near Weeping Water, and we went to his grave and we got to see it. I mean, it was a big deal. I was 5 or 6, my brother was probably about 10, and we're going. And we had to go see William Jennings Bryan. Right. And I had a vague idea who he was, but it was a big deal. And he started telling about you got to know him, and got kind of teared up, really emotional, how much William Jennings Bryan meant. And I'll never forget that. You know, it's kind of a big deal. We will always have a special place to me. William Jennings Bryan, because of my Uncle Hap, other reasons too, but so should we take a field trip to Weeping Water, Nebraska? You don't want to go to, but he's the nomination. The issue is this: by cross of gold and talking about getting rid of the gold standard and getting rid of monopolies, what party did he sound like? He sounded just like the populists. And the populists met in Omaha. Omaha was like the centerpiece of American politics for one election. They met in Omaha too, and they're in trouble. If they nominate their own guy, that will split the vote and make sure McKinley will be elected. Remember, third party split the vote. We are winner take all. That's why we have 2 parties. And so what did they pick? And they said, what do we do? Bryan has stolen our thunder. He's sympathetic to the populists, but he's a Democrat. And we're trying to form our own party. And so what will they do? It's like they're on the high wire, like that picture. By the way, this is the French high wire artist who would do the would illegally set up this wire between the 2 twin towers in New York City, 1972, before they were open. You went in between them at 110 stories high. That'd be fun. They nominated Bryan too. They rolled the die and nominated Bryan. By doing this, well, this cartoon, let's look at this one right here. This is Bryan. And by the way, this is kind of funny. I always enjoy this one. Bryan had a very cultivated comb over, because he had no hair here. And as he got older, you get more and more no hair. So they show him here with no hair. But this is the populist party is Bryan swallowing the Democrats. But no, this is where you have to get down the other way. By nominating Bryan, the Democrats are going to swallow it. This would end the populist party. They rolled the die and decided we can't win if we nominate somebody else. So we'll just go with the Democrats. So there's going to be ballots that will have Republicans, Democrats, populists, and the other minor parties. But both the populists and Democrats had William Jennings Bryan, electors pledged to them. So this is another cartoon. And here is the populace, but it's showing labor on the cross of gold. And what's the cross? This is obviously very much a It's very Christian. That's a very Protestant Christian feel to the Democratic campaign at that time. The Republican Party's the cross. And who's putting the cross of thorns on them? Hannah, and you see McKinley in his pocket, like little Napoleon. But it also shows the horrible prejudice and racism of well, a lot of places in America, but rural American anger about debt. The Rothschilds, and that represented Jewish bankers. And look at this horrible caricature of a Jewish man. The nose was a dollar sign. And so it shows the horrible anti-Semitism at that time. Horrible anti-Semitism. Yeah. Oh my goodness, we forgot Flamingo Friday. This is your place to quit. Can we have a drum roll, please? Drum roll, Tim, drum roll. Oh no! I hit batteries went out. Everyone act like we didn't do a drum roll. We gotta have fun. Because would you feel really weird if we did the live back here, but it messed everything up?
It would mess everything up, because you can see the like. And they both want to tie them together.
No, you're not right. It's totally ruin the rug, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, let's try one more time. Drum roll, please. Yes! All right, give it up. Come on, give it up. That was beautiful. You're right. The rug ties the room together. Have you guys seen the globe? That's pretty cool too. The 1960 globe. Yes. Yeah, there's a scene right by on Custer Hill where they have all the different tribes and within the different groups of the tribe. They talk a little bit about their history. And they're going to take that on. Yeah, I'm going to bring. I was saying very much. Yeah. In fact, I was just at the little debate on this song about something, and it's really. I thought it was really well done. Okay. But it mentions tribes. Say the one. They probably don't know what to do.
How did like you find?
How did I find out?
Yeah.
Your Montana leaders.
No, you know.
No, it's complex, but that's why. I'm talking to a person. Say.